Once again, welcome back to the Resilient Voices of Refugee podcast. Your usual host, Solange, and today I feel really honored to be joined by Daniel, a great refugee leader. He's done a lot of work in advocating for refugees in different aspects. And I'll give him time to introduce himself. Daniel, if you can tell us a little bit about who you are, what you do, where are you now, and everything about you. The floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Solange. It was very nice to meet you. I met you online, and I can't believe we are already doing this podcast together. Hello, listeners. My name is Daniel Ameny. But if you come to my community, I'm mostly known as Khalid. That is my Islamic name, and that is what everyone in the community knows. I am the founder, co-founder, and executive director of Planning for Tomorrow Youth Organization. And beyond the titles, I have been a refugee in Uganda since 2001, although I have lived in Uganda since 1997 when I was a kid. So all the way back, if I am to bring the past a little bit, I left Congo in 1997, and I came in the truck carrying Ugandan soldiers. Unfortunately, we were moved from a war zone to another war zone in northern Uganda, and I lived in northern Uganda from 1997 up to 2001 when I got registered as a refugee in Kyangwali refugee settlement. The work we do in Kyangwali is really just to help uplift the community. As refugees, we understand the problem, and we feel like it is not fair, it is not okay for refugees to just wait for relief support from international agencies. Yet ourselves, we could rise and do something for the most vulnerable amongst us. So that is exactly what we did. And right now, I'm just looking ahead and seeing that we are able to do so much as refugee-led organizations, as refugee leaders inside the settlement.
Wow, that's really amazing. To hear about what you do and, like all the effort that you're putting in to make sure that refugees live a better life. So if you can maybe tell us a little bit about how has life been in a refugee camp. I know you came in Uganda young, and so I want to understand, like, how has the experience been like living in a refugee camp?
Yeah, it has been a very difficult journey, I must admit, because if I look back in 2001, the first impression I got really, since I had lived illegally in Uganda for some years, I first felt a sense of security, being in a protected area, a refugee settlement. But then it was so difficult. I can still remember it was so hard to find food. But then, it wasn't all that bad, like bad, because we had friends. I still remember we had a water point where we would go every evening after school, like from 5:30, and stay there up to 3 p.m., 9 p.m., and we would be playing with our friends, talking stories, and that is where the idea of our initiative was actually born. We are talking about how our parents and guardians had big plans, and every year they would be talking about, when we go back next year, this is what we are going to do as a family to get out of poverty, to thrive, to become successful. But for 10 years, from 1997 up to 2007, no one ever went back, whether to South Sudan or DRC or Rwanda. And then we got this feeling that, how about we tell the community to wake up from this dream they're having and tell them to start planning for their future now. Because it looks like this is home. If we've been here for 10 years, then there's a high chance we're going to stay here even longer. So, and that is it. That is where the name came from. The name Planning for Tomorrow came from that need to start a movement to inform the community that Let us do whatever we are aspiring to do when we go back home. Let's start doing it here. So I must say it was a mixture of both. Of course, being a kid, I can't say that as a child then I was carrying the burden of keeping myself, of providing in the family. So I am very sure it was so much different for the adults, but I had a little bit of fun also.
Yeah, I mean, I always speak with, refugees, and when I ask them about the experience, it's always tough, the harsh reality of growing up in a refugee camp, where even thinking about tomorrow is a luxury, really. And so hearing from your experience and how you get the courage of thinking about planning for tomorrow, planning for the future, I'm wondering, like, how did the idea come? Did you have maybe a role model who has done something in the community? I'm just thinking about how did you think, or like giving back to the community or trying to solve a problem in the community when yourself you're struggling.
So it felt like we were all, in this problem together, and there was no way out unless somebody did something about it. Because I remember the first real initiative really started was something around, can we help households get an income? Because nobody would get an income in that settlement. What would you do? What would you sell to actually get an income? So they thought of saying, okay, when you're a refugee, yes, you might have lost everything. You might have lost loved ones, but whatever you were doing back in your home country, you've not lost it. You still have it in your head. You have the skills, you have the experiences. So the thought just came from, okay, if there are people who are out there who have some skills and they're willing to share with others, how about we bring them together? They share the skill, they keep meeting every week, and they can, work on, make a product and take to the market. No one had done something like that, but I cannot say there was no leader that made us feel like it was possible. There were some boys who started Koburas, now called Theota. They had started 2 years back, and they had managed to progress. And by that time, actually, I think they were on the verge of starting, opening a school. So we felt like, okay, if they can do it, I think we can do it. And they were very positive whenever we approached them for advice. They felt like, yeah, we need more people coming up to help us solve the problem, because us alone, we cannot solve everything.
Wow, I love that. I love that spirit. There is this saying that they always use, that nothing about us without us. So I love the fact that you were like, yes, we are struggling, but we better solve this together and without depending on charity. As you mentioned earlier, you're like, why refugees are always waiting for people to support? Why can't they bring up ideas together and solve their own challenges? And I really love that initiative. And I know Ciota, I've had a lot of great work from them, and I'm glad to hear that at least they have inspired you to take action. And so I'm thinking about, like still starting an initiative. I know it's not something easy as people might think or as it might seem. And a lot of people that I've got the chance to talk with, they say that maybe the inspiration came when they went to school. So like education seemed to be the foundation of all those thoughts of giving back to the community. And myself included, I started thinking about my community when I went to boarding school. I'm like, oh, actually I can do something. So is it the same for you? Did you get the chance maybe to go to school and maybe the inspiration came when you were at school and you have the skills, or was it something that just came, randomly?
Yeah, my education journey was quite challenging, very challenging actually. And in 2007, I was in my senior six, studying 100 kilometers away from home. So there was this feeling that, I was more important than the rest of the community. Not my own feeling, but the feeling that the community had. Like they had a very high expectation from me. So even starting this, it's because they had high expectation from somebody who has completed their school from the community and they were now studying from outside the settlement. It really felt like, something that I had to do to give back to the community. They felt like I was a solution to their problem. I wouldn't say that I felt the same way. For me, my biggest problem, I always talk about this, it was hunger. Feeling like, I can't even afford food. And it is not only me, it is the rest of the community. And, you have to wait for World Food Program, whatever they're going to provide there. I remember they used to give us 2 kilograms of beans to finish a whole month, which was impossible. So the idea just came like looking at the dependence, feeling like you cannot go anywhere when you're depending on the little relief support that you're getting from international agencies. And we just felt like, how about we just, do something to help the community to become self-reliant. That was the main thing that we thought of. But then we also thought of health, because there was a lot of high rate of GBV and then also high rate of HIV infections. So part of the work we did, especially from 2009, was create awareness in the community, help the community, and acting the drama was really very interesting. If you have ever acted, you don't need to be paid to act. You just need a platform to go act about something, and it motivates you enough. So that is what we also did in the beginning. So it was mostly about, the community expecting that this person who has studied up to this level should be able to solve our problems. And me also looking at my own life, how difficult it was to afford basic needs as basic as food. I felt like I should just, start something and help everyone out of that situation.
Wow, that's really inspiring. And like just waking up in the morning, I know you're not the only person who was feeling, hungry, or who was seeing the issue of dependency, like always waiting for World Food Program. What if they stop, supporting you? Or what if even the little support that you get reduced? So I'm glad that you really had an open mind of, like, let me support my community. And like, how was the journey? Like, how did the community accept your idea? Because for instance, I know some issues where refugees are like, oh, you want to use us to get money, or so like you face a lot of challenges. Maybe the community don't understand how important that initiative is. Or sometimes they're like, oh, the person we grew up together, like there's nothing good that can come from him. So like, how was the starting journey, how was the experience, starting? Like, did you introduce the idea to your friends, or did you just go immediately to the community? Like, how did you start?
So the start, by then there was really nothing like about money. There was nothing about money, and it took us very long to even start thinking of money, because all we were thinking about was, can us as the community come together and give back, look at those who are weaker among us, those who are more vulnerable, like the sick, the elderly, the orphans, that is what we were looking at. So it was us giving to those among us who are more vulnerable than us. So, I would come out, let me bring the co-founder, the other co-founder is called Bienvenue. Bienvenue came and brought us together, and we sat together and we started thinking about this. And we didn't really have relatives, so you bring the community together, and what you're telling them about is not something to benefit me, but it's something to benefit another member of the community that everybody knows is vulnerable. So we say, okay, we need to build a shelter. It is about to reach rainy season. Let us go and build a roof over the shelter of so and so. Not related to any of us, but then we feel like, okay, no one is going to do it if we don't do it. Then people just felt like, okay, this is a good cause. This is something we all identify. We all see that this person needs help. And if there are some people who are coming out to say, let's go and help them, then we all go there. We get a Salongo day, that is communal work day, and then we just go and do the work there. The same with access road to local authorities. It was always bushy because it was nobody's road. So we would just get everyone go and clear the road. Even the water well, by then we didn't have a lot of boreholes, so there were a lot of unguarded water wells. So we would also bring the community, just announce to them that on this day we are going to clean this water well and make it safe for the community. So it was, whatever we are doing, everyone really felt like it was necessary, and they were able to connect with it easily. And that is how we started. And I can tell you, in the beginning, we really had so many members. We had like 30 members. Right now, we are like only 3 people identifying as the co-founders. But we had like 30 members, and the group dynamics, challenges that come with progress and growth. So some other members kept on dropping. And of course, some of them felt like, when we start this, it is going to solve our personal problems. And over the years, as they saw it wasn't solving any of their problems, they kept on dropping out.
Wow. I can imagine. And I think your experience answer the questions of a lot of people who say that, oh, I want to start an initiative, but I don't have money. I'm just a high school graduate. Where do I get capital from? So like your experience explains clearly that, making impact in your community, you don't need much. You don't need millions of dollars. You just need that passion that drives you to, doing an action that can really change the community. And I just love that you involved the community from the beginning. It's not like you were doing the whole work behind the scene. You really made the community, feel engaged and understand the work. We also do the same here in Rwanda, like we do in Uganda. And, people understand, like the importance of Umuganda coming together, do the cleaning. And so the fact that we've been able to convince the community that, you know what, we have something to tell you. That's a great achievement, and that's a big win. And so like moving forward, you've initiated the initiative. The community fortunately understand your mission, they understand what you want to achieve, and they clearly see that it's something that can transform their life. Did you face any challenges in between? Maybe people didn't show up after a month, or maybe other challenges, because we know that a lot of nonprofit organizations rely on partnerships, donations, funds. Did you face any challenges, whether it's maybe, it can be anything really, any setback, or, how has the journey continued from the beginning?
Yeah, I can say the biggest barrier, of course, we needed to identify ourselves. We were just individuals, and if you're running a group, the group needs its own identity. So that is registration. So from 2007 up to 2013, up to 2012, actually 2013, we didn't have a registered entity. We didn't have a bank account. And so it was almost impossible for us to get any funding. When we finally did that, I remember we did that on 13th of August of 2023. When we finally did that and opened a bank account, we started getting our first funding. And you can't believe we started getting contract from NGOs that were around. So like we got the contract from one organization that was supporting widows and vulnerable women, and we were able to cultivate for them a garden. It was contract, so we had to get paid, but we were also doing something that is already within our own mission, like vision and everything. We were feeling fulfilled by the work. And then I remember we also constructed some latrines for persons with disability, and that also earned us money. And then the final money that now brought issues was these other monies we would just get and find a way of distributing between members, and also use part of it to advance our programming. The money that brought issues was the one where one of our members, a female member, was awarded the Refugee of the Year award, and she got an envelope, a package, and the organization, the group, also got another package. By then we had about 30 members. I'm telling you, the executive committee sat, and majority, we were 12 members, and 7 just said, we've been working for free for all this time. This 2,500,000 shillings, about equivalent to around $800 now. This, we have to spend it. We have to divide it. And we were like, no, this is our opportunity to finally move from a briefcase organization and have an address. So the few of us, I think we just remained like 5 people when we decided that we are going to use this money to construct an office. Not even construct, to actually just buy construction materials, the roofing sheets and the nails, because the rest of the materials, we would just go to the bush and bring them. When we decided that, other members dropped off. And then we used this money to set up our first office. And that office, that was in 2014. That office in May 2015 became our school, our what is now P4T nursery and primary school. We started 2 classes in one room. When one class is inside, another class will be playing outside, because it was the nursery classes. So it was possible for us to run it. We started with 26 learners, and I remember in 2016, that number went to 186. That was a very big endorsement from the community that we really needed this. But of course, starting is always very hard. Without funding, you're just using local available materials. You're trying to get the community members without a source of income to contribute to the education of their children. So I must say that was it. The group dynamic issues and then the funding challenges were really big barriers in our way of development. And the potential donors could not just trust a group like, P4T, a group of young people who have just come together claiming they want to create some change in the community.
Wow, that's a whole lot to navigate, but I'm glad that you really addressed it wisely. And it's something that you now look back and you're like, we really made a great decision. Because when it comes to money, some people lose dignity, and you're like, as they said, they have worked hard, they have volunteered their time. Now it was time to, to just recognize their efforts. It's not the money that they have stolen somewhere. It was, money that they have worked for. I can imagine proposals that you wrote to get that, or even the work that you put in, to get that. But I love the fact that you insisted on, using that money to build, an asset, if I can say. If it started as an office and now a school, and I can imagine how proud you are, and you should be proud, to have built something that is really transforming, hundreds and thousands of refugees in your community. And talking about funding, I love that subject because I know
I know.
nowadays it's now is now the hardest thing to discuss about because everything has been shut down. Some programs have stopped completely. Other projects have just started, and in the middle, things happened and they just reduced maybe the employees or reduced even the beneficiaries. How are you coping up? How are you trying to make sure that you're not falling down completely? Your project keeps running. How is it? Hard? You're adapting, or how are you coping up?
Yeah, at first, because we really didn't have funding from the guys that cut the funding, we felt like we were safe at first. And that is before we started feeling the pinch of the impact of that funding cut. We were too small to get like USAID funding by then. And so we have been just surviving on small family foundation fundings. And so there was no project that was interrupted directly like that. But, when it came to the food ration, about a population of about 150,000 people, 60% were removed from the food ration. And that meant parents who were making contribution to the education of their children at our school were no longer having the source of income now. Everyone was now sending to my office applications that we are not able to afford this anymore. Besides that, we used to refer cases to some international organizations. Unfortunately, when this happened, it was now impossible to do that because you try to refer a case to their offices and they say, oh, we have cut down our staffing by 70%. All those programs we are doing are no longer in place. So that is another way. And you would now be there with a person who needs help, and we didn't have funding to support them. And we didn't also have anywhere to send them. And then finally, diversion of funding now. A donor has been supporting you with something over a period of time, but now the donor says the situation is bad in such and such a location, and I need to make sure that, because of the funding cut, there are life-saving situations that need resources. They just say, okay, from next year, we are not going to be able to support you because we need to take our resources to this other location. So all those have really affected how we operate, and it is giving us the question of how shall we sustain this? Because now we know there can come a time when there will be no funding for what we are running. And we are running schools. You cannot say, I'm going to run this school for 5 years and close down. The school should always be there. But which donor can come and say, I'm going to be with you forever. No matter what, I'm going to continue supporting your work like for the next 10 years. Most of them will come for a year or 3 or 5, if you're lucky. So that is how the funding has really affected us. But it has also opened our mind to sustainability question. What happens now when you can't get any more funding to pay salary for staff? Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, the struggle is real. And I just want to say that you're not alone. We're in this together. We all struggling, trying to brainstorm about how do we sustain our initiatives. Again, that was a challenge that nobody was expecting that it can happen. But I think it was also an opportunity of, again, thinking about we can't always, be dependent. We have to brainstorm and really come up with some ideas of how do we sustain this beautiful initiative that we have started, these impactful programs that we have already launched. So I think it's a challenge for everyone to really think about how do we take this work far, and without always depending on external donors. Yeah, I just wanted to ask, as we approach the end of this episode, what would you tell young refugees who still think that they can't impact the community because they don't have money, they don't have skills, or simply that we just can't be able to do it? What's your message?
My message would be that they should start. If you're out there and you're thinking of all the problems that your community is going through, you're seeing them, you just have to start sharing. Sometimes it doesn't need you to look for funding. Somebody's lacking food today, but maybe you have 10 kilograms of porridge in the house. Can you share a kilo or two for them to have porridge? Something like that. But also from my setting, because I am also the president of the refugee-led organization network in my community, what I've seen also as a challenge is people trying to solve all the problems in the community. It is better to pick one that you're going to do well, and then try to fix that for the number that you can manage. Because there are so many problems, and if you try to solve all of them, you will never manage. And again, if you want to start, like I'm in Uganda, if you want to solve this problem all over Uganda, you will also not manage. At least target the nearest community around you, because you don't even have resources to actually manage the logistics. And then the third advice I'll give them is that this is not going to give you quick money. So I know as a refugee, you study or you're out there and you're actually struggling. You don't even have a job, you don't have a business. And then you start this initiative and feel like, yeah, let me be the executive director here and I'm going to earn money and I'm going to solve my own problems. It is going to take years before you could even manage to pay yourself anything. So if any young refugee out there wants to start something, they need to be ready for the grind, because it is going to take time and it needs you to be really passionate and ready to move the journey for some time before you can even benefit from it. And you shouldn't actually look at the benefit, because you're trying to improve life in your community, and that should be the only goal.
Wow, I love that. I mean, I love how you say that just start, you won't know how tough or how easy it is if you don't start. And what you mentioned about, starting small. A lot of us are really passionate. We all want to give back to the community, want to solve problems, but are we really ready to address all of those? You're in education, you're in climate change, you're in, women empowerment, employment. I love the fact that you mentioned about breaking down and see, like, what's my target audience? What am I able to do in my capacity? Before I get a lot of resources, what can I do, immediately? Something that is not heavy on me. Again, as you mentioned, we are young, we are trying to navigate this life, trying to look for money and trying to look about how can we make our future bright. So again, you don't want to put all your effort in community development, because if you don't empower yourself, I don't think you'll be able to empower others. So I love the fact that you mentioned that, start small, know your target audience, try and use, like your little capacity, and small by small, you'll get there. And not loving money, not being money driven as well. Because if you're money driven, I think you even use the fund in your own benefit. If you get maybe $1,000, you might use a half, and you use a half to implement a certain project, and maybe use another half to be like, okay, I'm compensating myself. I've worked hard for this. So, I mean, we shouldn't be money driven. We should really look up to something that is going to benefit the community. And I would say, as someone who has been in this space for at least more than 4 years, I know that it's really fulfilling. Maybe not financially, but the joy that I have, being able to serve my community, the joy that you can have knowing deep down that these 5 students have been able to go to school because I played this certain role. The joy that you can feel knowing that, oh, I am a role model to some maybe young men or young women in my community. That itself is really satisfying. So I can't agree with you anymore. And I'm glad that you really mentioned all those advices. And yeah, just to wrap up, what would be your message to the stakeholders? We're always saying refugees that we need resources, stakeholders, please step up, or we're not visible, we are trying to raise the voices of refugees. We are always like, stakeholders, please, come, we are doing great things, and we're indeed doing great things. But what will be the key message to the stakeholders?
Yeah, to the stakeholders, I would just say that they need to find it in their hearts to trust us. If we are doing everything we are doing without resources, imagine if we are given even the smallest resource, what we could do. For us, it is not about the money. It's not about the salary. For us, the fulfillment is not from what we earn from this. The fulfillment comes from the impact we are creating. Because we know these people personally, we know their plight, and even if I got like $1,000 and I spent it in supporting like 20 families, and I didn't retain a single coin, the joy I see in their faces is enough. I've been in spaces like I was in Brussels for the European Humanitarian Forum. And the discussion there was, we actually had a roundtable discussion with the donors. And the big issue was, can we trust you? We cannot trust you. We have to go through the international intermediaries. But unfortunately, the international intermediaries are scared. They're scared of empowering us because they feel like they're working themselves out of business, because there's no plan for them. After empowering the refugee-led organizations or national actors, and they are now able to take charge of all these humanitarian efforts, what will now remain? What role will they now play? I feel like that was not well defined, and now it remains a challenge. The talk around localization is we need to work with the local actors. For me, I even feel like the 25% is too little. They need to really come out and trust us and give us the resources and see what we can do with the resources and in creating the change in the community.
Wow, I love that. You just reminded me of my previous post on LinkedIn when I was talking about trust. Trust has been an issue, especially when it comes to trust-based funding. It's been a big issue, and as you said, it shouldn't really be an issue, because if you are able to do, such a great work in your community without resources, how much more can you do if you were really trusted with those resources? I hope and I wish that stakeholders can really listen to this episode and really put into consideration that refugees are no longer just beneficiaries. You know, like we are equal partners. We know what we want and we work hard, you know, to get that. And yeah, we just need your support. Whether it's in terms of skills, whether it's in, you know, because financial leadership is also leadership, you know, so you can't say that you're transforming us into leaders if you're excluding us in the financial part of leadership. And yeah, I would say that thank you so much for such a great message.
Solange, I have one more point here.
Please do.
I hear the international actors. I hear their point because they feel like we have some capacity gap. You know, me here, maybe you find the budget we've been managing is less than $50,000. And here is a funding that is way beyond what we've been managing. And then we don't have an M&D system. We are using Excel-based system to manage our finances. But there's one RLO in my community. Their slogan is a non-problem is not a problem. Maybe it is high time they came and looked at us and accepted us with all those gaps that we are having, and maybe started investing in filling the gaps. I mean, these are teachable things. If our financial system is not good, can't you support us and put in place a good financial system, even help us hire professional financial experts to not come and manage this? So for me, I feel like that statement is very relevant. If you know the problem that we're having and you really want to work with us as RLOs, then it is better you just come out and say, you know what, I do the assessment, identify the gaps, and then come out and say, okay, before I give you the funding, I'm putting you through these years of fellowship or through this training. Once you're done and we have set up your system, then we're going to give you resources, because it is a solvable problem.
I love that. But also that brings me to another question of refugee-led organizations that complain that, yes, we've went through those whole processes of being equipped with skills, how to manage funds, but then when they give us the fund, when they finally, give us the fund, they manage all the logistics. So you don't get to have the fund in your bank account. The organization will be like, okay, let me know what you want to use the money for, then we'll handle the logistics. So what's your take on that in 1 minute?
No, I think that does not have to happen like that, because then you're not giving me the skills and capacity to actually run my organization very well if you're going to handhold me and manage everything for me. The big thing here is come build my capacity and allow me manage the grant. And even if you didn't give me another grant, I'm not going to remain the same. Another donor will come and find me at another level. And I can say proudly that I have had partners that have worked with P4T and helped us grow along the process. At first, it felt like, oh, you're asking us too many requirements, we are a small community-based organization, you can't be expecting this. But the moment we embraced it, we now grew in our system, and other donors, potential partners that came later, they felt like, wow, this is a very small but organized organization. So I wouldn't recommend that any partner comes and manages logistics of a local actor or an RLO, because that would just be keeping them at the same level, not helping them to grow.
Wow, yeah, I love that. I mean, trust shouldn't be, halfway, like you should trust them from the beginning until the implementation is done. And yeah, I mean, thank you so much. Those were really great thoughts, and I'm glad that I had the chance to discuss with you. And I have no doubt that people who are gonna watch this will be inspired I myself have enjoyed this conversation, and how I wish that we can have more of these conversations in the future, in the coming weeks or months. And yeah, thank you so much. I really appreciate your time, and I would say keep up with the great work. I know it's not the easiest journey in the world, but again, as you said, it's the most fulfilling work that you can ever do, like impacting the lives of people in your community. So what an honor it was really having you. And to the people who'll be watching, please just enjoy the conversation. And to the stakeholders, I hope you've heard the message. And to the refugees, I hope you've learned from Daniel's experience. And stay tuned for more episodes to come. Thank you.
Thank you, Solange.